Stay in this apartment. Wear this watch. I'll give you this card. I said, I'll take care of you. Lin Yi looked at Yuner's domineering and leaking appearance before him and smiled. He was almost eating enough of this soft rice. Just then, a laugh came from behind. Oppa, when are you going to do something bad? Take me with you. Looking back, a charming figure stood in the sunlight with a charming smile. Keywords of the novel. Starting from that Korean city without pop-ups, starting from that Korean city to download the complete set of TXT, starting from that Korean city to read the latest chapters. Hello, Teacher Lin, Chapter 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hello, Teacher Lin, Chapter 1, cough cough, cough cough cough. Ma Dan's cold is almost coughing and bleeding. A man in his early 30s squatted on the edge of the flower base in the square, with one hand covering his mouth and the other holding a cigarette, frowning and muttering with an uncomfortable expression. And not far from him, a group of figures were gathered together, coming and going. Across from the group of figures, several large cameras and a bunch of DSLR lenses are shooting towards the most stunning and dazzling figure in the center. After so many years, I never expected that Lin Jiuzhan could come back again. It's been a long time since I last saw him. Staring at the figure, the man lifted his watch and glanced at time, while gently shaking the cigarette ash between his fingers. After muttering to himself for a few words, he began to cough repeatedly. Gone, cough cough cough, cough cough cough. After staring at the situation over there for more than 10 minutes, a middle-aged man wearing a duckbill cap in the crowd looked around and then landed on the man next to the flower base. With a helpless expression, he climbed up his face and said, Lin Yi, come here, we need to work. Oh, here we go. Man, oh, Lin Yi wanted to throw the cigarette butt between his fingers onto the ground and step it out. But after hesitating for a moment, he turned around and extinguished it on the trash can before throwing it in. Lin Yi, a graduate of Jiuzhan University, is not a top scorer in the college entrance examination, but just an art student who has had a bad luck. According to his art teacher, it was done by pressing the line in. After wandering around in college for 4 years in a daze, I graduated and relied on the photography skills I learned from various female friends during my time in school. I followed the tradition of an art student and went out to explore the outside world before returning. Through some personal connections, I established relationships with some film crews and found a job as a photographer with them. The salary is not high, and the 5 insurances and 1 fund are enough for a carefree life, and the most important thing is not to be busy. My main job is to help some artists take makeup photos, crew photos, behind-the-scenes photos, and so on. He doesn't even need to take vlogs, he just needs to take some hard or recorded photos. Except for the need to collaborate with the team, the time outside of shooting can be freely arranged. For Lin Yi, it's quite good. He can travel around for public expenses and also have time to pick up girls. After all these years and the wave, it can be considered a global trend. And most people can handle this kind of job, and the reason why Lin Yi was able to secure this position is mainly because of his identity as an art student at Jiuzhan University and his keen sense of shooting angles, which makes the photos he takes more beautiful and sensational than ordinary people. Of course, in addition, some small human relationships and backgrounds are also inevitable. Teacher Lin, could you please? When Lin Yi walked over, a young girl in her early 20s walked over with a Canon 1D flagship and handed her camera to Lin Yi. Anyway, I'm over 30 years old. As an elderly person who has been on the set for so many years, it's normal to have a teacher to call me. Lin Yi, who took the camera, smiled and thanked the man in the duckbill cap, saying, Lao Zhao, don't shout so loudly. You don't even have time to smoke. If you cough up and still smoke, sooner or later you will die. The man who was called Lao Zhao by Lin Yi and he have been colleagues for many years, although their words may sound unpleasant, their concern can be heard. You're not good anymore. You're already a director, why are you so cheap-mouthed? Lin Yi gave him a somewhat amused look and then turned around to signal the situation over there. How should I take the picture? Give me a message. I'll still adjust the angle of the shot myself. Don't rework when the time comes. I'm very lazy. After taking the picture, I'll run away. You were quite obsessed with people back then, so go ask them. Anyway, you know Korean and ask them what they think. I don't care, I just need a few photos to promote it. Director Lao Zhao's request was simple, but it also gave Lin Yi a headache. As a director, you don't communicate with me and let me have a photo communication. Lin Yi was angry. It's not me taking photos, why should I communicate? Are you stupid? Lao Zhao ignored Lin Yi's words and turned around to leave. As he walked away, he even glanced at the crowd being stopped by security personnel and said, "Hurry up and shoot. We'll start recording soon. There's no time for you to procrastinate. It's been so many years, why are there still so many fans? I'm so annoyed." Hearing this roast, Lin Yi also looked at the scene over there, dropped his mouth and took the bad cannon to Lin Yi's direction. It's not that you don't have the money to buy a better Leica or anything else, it's mainly because it's unnecessary. It's just a few thousand to 10,000 jobs, and there's no need to spend money upgrading equipment. Isn't it good to fish? Isn't it good to spend the remaining money on some more needed sisters? As Lin Yi walked up to Lin Yi's team, he immediately gestured for the camera in hand and the brand on his chest. "Yunner, is it convenient? If it's convenient, we need to take a few daily promotional photos here." The translator who had already walked forward looked at Lin Yi in surprise after hearing his fluent Korean, and then silently retreated back. Equally surprised were the team members brought by Lin Yi himself from the peninsula. Then a chubby-faced glasses girl wearing a hoodie walked out and got in touch with Lin Yi. "Hello." Looking at the other person's somewhat bewildered expression, Lin Yi replied with a light smile, "My surname is also Lin." "Hello, Teacher Lin, we still need to make up for Yunner here. Please wait a moment." The chubby-faced glasses girl was quite polite to Lin Yi, without showing any domineering attitude. "No problem. May I ask how to shoot it?" "Let me tell Yunner. I can shoot whatever is convenient for you." Faced with this question, Lin Yi kicked the difficult problem that Lao Zhao had just thrown at him to Lin Yi's team, and he didn't care anyway. It's just a few promotional photos, but there's still a guarantee for the post-production period. What are you afraid of? Glasses girl seemed to have heard such an irresponsible answer for the first time and didn't know how to answer Lin Yi for a moment. Helpless, he could only retreat to Lin Yi's side and whispered to her about the situation. Listening to her little assistant's answer, Lin Yi's lively eyes crossed the gap in the crowd and cast them onto Lin Yi, who was a bit bored and playing on the floor crevice outside. A face with a scruffy beard and slightly thin facial features, but it can still be vaguely seen that the foundation is not bad. A pair of hanging half-open eyes, making it difficult to see the pupils and expressions inside clearly. Wearing it is also very ordinary, with a short-sleeved jacket and a vest. It is a very standard outfit for the team members. The only thing she noticed was the tall and upright figure of the other person, which should be above 180. After just a glance, Lin Yi withdrew her gaze and didn't pay much attention to the issue. "I'll ask him later." "It's okay, it's just a promotional photo." "NEI." The glasses girl nodded and turned back to continue organizing her belongings. A few minutes later, Lin Yi, who had finished her makeup, stood up and walked towards Lin Yi. As she walked towards him, she realized that there was another point in front of her that caught her attention. It was the palm that was holding the camera, or rather those slender fingers, fair and with distinct bone joints. The nails were trimmed very cleanly, and there was no bad habit of keeping nails. Although Lin Yi is not a controlling party, when she sees something beautiful, she may feel a bit appreciative. With these thoughts in mind, Lin Yi walked forward and smiled at Lin Yi, surrounded by her agent and assistant. "Hello, Teacher Lin. Don't be so polite, Yunner she. It's not your first time working here. Faced with the respectful words spoken by the woman who made him feel numb all over, Lin Yi took a slight breath and smiled. It's been a long time since I came over, I'm a bit unfamiliar. Listening to Lin Yi's words also brought Lin Yuner's memories back to many years ago in the summer, and then a fluent Chinese sentence blurted out from her mouth. Speaking, he blinked his bright deer eyes and smiled brightly. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was slightly stunned and calmly looked down, avoiding the pair of eyes that shook his mind. These two people, one in Korean and the other in Chinese, exchanged identities in the blink of an eye. Meng Xian, the new author, has made an appearance. I hope everyone can join in and not too dampen Meng Xian's creative enthusiasm. Woo woo, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Scary Moment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Scary Moment. Okay, Yuner, you can walk and stop as you please, don't worry about my side. I can take photos myself. Is there a need for the direction of the station? Let's start with the side view, then walk towards my camera, and finally give me a few opportunities to take a back view. Okay. In the empty space of the square, Lin Yi followed Lin Yuner's footsteps with a camera, squatting half down. The camera in his hand made a flickering shutter sound under his fingers. Next to them, several photography assistants were very familiar with the process and the needs of lighting and shadow, following in their footsteps. On your side, I held a reflector and projected all the parameters needed for Lin Yi's lens onto Lin Yuner's upper body. After 2 minutes, the shooting paused and Lin Yi stood up straight to check the stored photos in the camera. With the shaking of her thumb, photos of Lin Yuner hovering on the memory card flashed across the small screen. There are both closed-eye and exposure situations, which are essential for capturing. However, apart from these discarded photos, there are still many that can be directly used. In those photos, Lin Yuner's bright smile, cheerful smile, and some natural body postures were all captured by him in the camera and engraved on the memory card. In Lin Yi's eyes, photography is hunting, and the shutter is the trigger. The kind of hunting in the studio is planned with traps, while capturing is wild shooting with arrows and bullets that can be fired at any time. It is precisely with such a mindset and thoughts, coupled with that little bit of visual and olfactory talent, that Lin Yi can firmly grasp the camera in his hand. Just as Lin Yi was flipping through the photos, a voice enveloped in a fragrant scent came from his ear. Wow, Teacher Lin, your skills are great. I rarely see anyone capturing a photo with such an effect for the first time. Indeed, it usually takes a few trial and error attempts before we can officially start. However, that's not the point. The distance of this voice scared Lin Yi to the other side for 2 steps, and then he looked at Lin Yuner who spoke. You scared me to death. I just came to see the effect, otherwise I wouldn't know how to make an expression. Lin Yuner burst out laughing, but her gaze remained focused on the camera in Lin Yi's hand. Work-oriented, no other ideas. Lin Yi also felt this, so he took the initiative to hand the camera to Lin Yuner, then turned around and walked towards his photography assistants, explaining to them the angle of reflection and proofreading when he planned to shoot later. 2 minutes later, Lin Yi, who had regained his camera, looked at Lin Yuner and said, It's still the same situation as before, but I need you to restrain your expression and smile a bit. You don't need to exert too much force, just give me a look while pursing your mouth. Is that okay? If this kind of professional communication is told to some newcomers who have just entered the industry, Lin Yi is likely to receive a clear and foolish expression. But for Lin Yuner, who has been in the industry for over a decade, the information given is simply too simple. So with an okay gesture, I turned around and walked towards the center of the shoot. It was a few more minutes of shooting time, and when Lin Yi paused again and looked down at the photo, his fingers paused in one of them. In that photo, Lin Yuner had a blue sky and white clouds above her head, and a faint smile appeared on her fair and smooth face. Especially the glare of the reflector did not appear in front of her, but instead spread a layer of radiance over her from behind. And this finishing touch was to make Lin Yi's slightly narrowed eyes reveal her unique youthful and sunny face. In response to that faint smile, a very impressive photo appeared in the camera. The Lin Yi in this photo left Lin Yi silent for a moment. After pursing her lips, she put down her phone and smiled at the Lin Yi who had already walked over, saying, "It's hard work, it can be over now." Lin Yi, who had just started to enter the state, looked bewildered. "Ha, isn't this just beginning?" After seeing that Lin Yi had already handed the camera to his assistant and turned around to leave, the dear eyes blinked twice and looked at the assistant. "May I take a look?" As a new generation of young people, that photography assistant couldn't resist Lin Yi's power generation. He took the initiative to hand the camera to Lin Yi. Half a time later, Lin Yi, who had also seen the photo that Lin Yi had just paid attention to, opened her mouth slightly, as if surprised by the other person's talent, and as if she had never expected to have such a moment of youth. Then he lifted his head and looked for Lin Yi. Then, in a corner, he saw the back of Lin Yi, who had already said goodbye to Lao Zhao. There is no angry emotion because talented people always receive some special treatment. In the following days, Lin Yi continued to run with the group as usual, but most of the time he squatted in the corner. Either play games or smoke. It wasn't until Lao Zhao found him and said he wanted to take regular promotional photos every day that he got up and picked up his camera to walk towards Lin Yi. After collaborating with Lin Yi several times, Lin Yi also caught the other party's somewhat lazy personality and intentionally or unintentionally made some flaws, hoping to see if his skills were easy to come by or just a stroke of luck. In the face of Lin Yi's dilemma, Lin Yi was still able to accurately cut through the nodes like a surgical knife, and forcefully intercepted the small expressions that Lin Yi had not even reacted to on the camera. Or surprised, or joyful, or angry, or daydreaming. But without exception, they all possess eye-catching beauty and can add Lin Yi's own charm to her photos, forming a bonus rather than a burden. After several collaborations and a few days of tinkering on the set, Lin Yi gained a general understanding of Lin Yi's situation. She has some favorable impression of a talented photographer who can bring her added effects, but that's all. However, this goodwill has also helped the two of them to gradually get to know each other better and communicate more during these few days. At the end of another noon shoot, when Lin Yi was about to throw the camera back to the hotel to rest with his assistant, Lin Yi stopped him in time and said, "Wait a moment, Teacher Lin." "Why?" Lin Yi turned around and looked at Lin Yi, feeling a bit strange. "Well, could you please help me take a separate set of posters? The photographer I arranged for had diarrhea on the spot and couldn't make it over." Lin Yi smiled awkwardly. Upon hearing these words, Lin Yi looked around and found that everyone was already packing their things. "Ah, your recording is over, isn't it?" "Yes, I have to go back first and come over to record a new one in a month. So I originally planned to shoot a set of posters and then go back to Seoul, but something unexpected happened." Lin Yi didn't deny it and continued, "There will be a reward, Teacher Lin." Lin Yi smiled and nodded without refusing, "No problem, I'm still very happy to earn some extra income." After receiving a response, Lin Yi finally breathed a sigh of relief and gently patted the slightly raised chest. Across from Lin Yi, his eyes droop. Far away from the square, Lin Yi sat in Lin Yi's car and followed them to a snack street intersection filled with neon signs. "Are you filming here?" Lin Yi, the co-pilot, lowered his head and looked outside, asking. "Well, on the way back a few days ago, I feel like this location is pretty good." Lin Yi glanced at the arcade-style storefront street outside, and she really liked the retro atmosphere. "Just make your decision, I'm just one of those who captures the camera." Lin Yi didn't say anything, just lowered his head to check the camera. The assistant didn't come with him this time. He probably needs to slowly adjust the parameters while taking photos later. At this time, it was just noon, and this was the snack street in the old city area. The pedestrian flow was not high, and it could even be considered low. So even if Lin Yi got off the vehicle, no one recognized her among the passing aunts or middle-aged couples. "Don't you want to change your clothes?" Lin Yi, who also got off the car, glanced at the situation and casually took a photo of the nearby building. He looked down at the colors and adjusted the parameters while asking, "What do you say?" Upon seeing Lin Yi get off the car, Lin Yi smiled and returned to the car. Then her team members began blocking the front and rear seats. Seeing this, Lin Yi trembled and glanced at the car with his spare light. After breathing a few more breaths, he gradually regained his composure. "It's already over 30, so I can control my emotions to some extent." A few minutes passed in an instant, and as Lin Yi got off the car after changing clothes, a hint of amazement flashed deep in Lin Yi's half-narrowed eyes. The fisherman's hat, dark T-dot shirt, and loose pants may feel a bit distant if worn on some passers-by, but on Lin Yi, they have an approachable contrast. "How about it?" After getting off the car, Lin Yi looked at Lin Yi and asked. "It feels like summer." Lin Yi nodded and raised his hand to take a photo of her, while Lin Yi was purely debugging the device, so he playfully stuck out his little tongue, which was extremely cute. Lin Yi, who guessed the other person's thoughts, didn't think much. After saving this photo, he took Lin Yi to the eaves of an arcade, next to the pillars. Because it was a fixed shoot this time, Lin Yi didn't walk like before. Instead, she followed Lin Yi's words and stood in position, tilting her head to look at the man across from her. "Is this here?" "Well, take it easy. Let's take a few pictures first." After speaking, Lin Yi lifted his camera and leaned his eyes onto the viewfinder. But when he saw the beautiful figure standing in the viewfinder, he suddenly forgot to breathe and his heart slowed down half a beat. The world inside the viewfinder is very quiet. When you lift the camera and capture the picture of the world through the viewfinder, your eyes are only what you want to see, without any external interference or any residual light, only the picture inside the viewfinder. Previously, Lin Yi had only heard of this emotion from some colleagues who loved photography, but he had never felt it, perhaps he had not encountered anything that moved his heart. Until this moment, in his perceptual world, there was only the woman in the viewfinder in front of him. Bright, brilliant, beautiful, and moving. "Teacher Lin, how about this position? Can we take a photo?" Lin Yi's reaction was not noticed by Lin Yi, so she spoke up to inquire about the situation. Lin Yi, who was caught back by the sound, let out a sigh of relief and nodded, "No problem, that's it." After speaking, bring your eyes closer to the viewfinder and focus on the woman inside again through the viewfinder. The hustle and bustle in my ears gradually turned into silence. Looking at the posture of the beautiful figure in front of me, with the scorching heat rushing up my forehead, my emotions froze one moment after another under the flow of my fingers. A few minutes later, Lin Yi handed the camera to Lin Yi and asked her to check the results. And Lin Yi was also very happy to see photos inside that made her extremely satisfied. Among them, there were one or two small expressions that were still captured by Lin Yi, accompanied by her unique composition technique, showing a unique retro atmosphere. This is also the reason why Lin Yi asked Lin Yi to take pictures for her. She really likes this style. Smiling, I just looked up and wanted to chat with Lin Yi for a few words. As a result, a black shadow suddenly rushed past her, and under the screams of surprise and the honking of the vehicle in her ear, the next second, a picture that made her pupils tighten appeared in front of her. Lin Yi, who had just stood beside him, quickly rushed to the center of the road, picked up a child, rolled in place, and rushed to the other side. Then a mud truck roared past, and after a collision, a cloud of dust was lifted not far behind. Before Lin Yi, who was still in shock, could come to her senses, her agents and assistants rushed over and protected her behind her. But her gaze remained fixed on Lin Yi, who had saved the child. He stumbled a bit and stood up, returning the child in his arms to an aunt before turning back to look at himself. That pair of eyes that seemed to have not woken up in the past few days and were half squinted, all opened at this moment. Lin Yi's eyes were bright and deep, especially under the sunlight, and the amber-colored pupils reflected on them left her stunned. Because she is well aware that most people of East Asian descent have dark brown or dark brown pupils, with fewer or even fewer light-colored ones. I didn't expect Lin Yi, who usually squints his eyes, to have such a beautiful pair of eyes. Even she is a bit dazed. Are you okay? Walking over, Lin Yi first glanced at the situation on the other side of the mud-head cart, and then asked Lin Yi a question. It's okay, are you okay? Lin Yi asked in response after shaking her head. It's okay, I just scratched my skin. It seems like today's filming is coming to an end. Lin Yi shook his head the same way. Then others also turned around and packed up their things, ready to leave. After all, such things have happened, so we can't just stay in place and wait for the news. But at this moment, Lin Yi's keen hearing heard another dull sound of wheels coming from behind and quickly looked up at Lin Yi. I noticed that the other person's pretty face was pale as they looked ahead, their mouth wide open and unable to speak. After taking a deep breath, Lin Yi didn't think much and rushed into the arcade, holding Lin Yi in his arms. The next second, a gust of strong wind brushed past and broke several pillars. Lin Yi, on the other hand, protected Lin Yi and collided with the wall. He let out a muffled groan from his mouth, and the pain all over his body almost made him faint. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Death Together at the Beginning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Death Together at the Beginning. Lin Yi, stinky kid, stop smoking and start working. On another working day, Lin Yi, who was sitting on a pony fishing, waved his hand and walked towards Lao Zhao after hearing his words. Just when I take the camera, I always remember the thrilling scene from half a month ago on the snack street in my mind. Fortunately, I flashed quickly at that time, only bruised my back and hands and feet. Otherwise, if you were really hit by that mud truck, you probably wouldn't have anyone left. The situation that followed that day was also very outrageous. After Lin Yi's team helped him up and gave Lin Yi a simple thank you, they hurriedly left their original place and set off back to Seoul. I guess I'm afraid of getting into some news, and Lin Yi can understand, so he didn't say anything. Anyway, the reward has been received and both parties have settled. I received a reward of 100,000 yuan for just a few photos, and the gratitude fee for saving people is all included in it. What are you fooling around with? Take a photo of someone else. The two newcomers are still so verbose, it's troublesome. A slap awakened Lin Yi's daze, and Lao Zhao's voice came in his ear, hurry up and pack up and leave. Tomorrow we have to go to Cheong Island to shoot a new variety show. I remember you have a skydiving certificate, right? Lin Yi casually raised his camera and clicked a few times at the two idols in front who had already posed at the request of his agent. Then he handed the camera to the other person and asked them to choose their own pictures. After that, I replied to Lao Zhao's question, what do you want? If you want to help me, don't think about me. Let's not talk. He is very clear about the personality of Lao Zhao and likes to recruit some strong men in the production team to reduce expenses. However, the remaining expenses were not put into his pocket, but were used to improve post-production. Old Zhao, who seems to have a sharp tongue, is actually an ideal personality, which is why he can't bear Lin Yi to fish in his own crew. Besides having a strong relationship, there is also that visible talent. They're all brothers, how could you say that about me? Lao Zhao smiled and hugged Lin Yi's shoulder. It's the new variety show that Lin Yi did last time. Don't you really think about it? 2 days later, Lin Yi, dressed in a refreshing outfit, looked at the man in professional attire before her and covered her mouth with a smile. Teacher Lin, you have so many professions, she said, I can't do anything about being caught as a strong soldier. Lin Yi looked at Lin Yi in front of him, wearing a warm pink hoodie that looked very cute. How is your body doing? After covering her mouth and laughing, Lin Yi carefully looked around a few times, then looked at Lin Yi in a soft voice and apologized. Last time the company left in a hurry because they were worried about something going wrong. I'm really sorry. At that time, she was in a state of panic, and even forgot to inquire about the situation of the life-saving benefactor, which made her occasionally think of that afternoon this month. At the same time as breaking out in a cold sweat, there was an indescribable guilt towards Lin Yi. It's okay, it's all over now. I just scratched my skin, it's not a big problem. After answering, Lin Yi raised his finger and rubbed it again to prevent Lin Yi from feeling guilty. Besides, I also received a reward, and it was a heavy one, he said, thank you. Lin Yi glanced at Lin Yi's very carefree smile, remained silent for a moment, then lightly nodded her head, revealing a sincere smile. Wear your equipment, it may be a bit impolite later. I apologize for any inconvenience caused. Unable to bear Lin Dajuan's affectation, Lin Yi turned his head and gestured to the nearby equipment, saying, It's okay, I was a bit nervous at first, but after hearing that it's Teacher Lin, you've filled me with a sense of security. Lin Yi walked towards the equipment area with a smile, but the words that made Lin Yi smile as she walked away. Half an hour later, with the whistling sound of the helicopter propeller in his ear, Lin Yi pulled the safety rope that had already been hung with Lin Yi beside him and led her towards the helicopter. After boarding, Lin Yi whispered to Lin Yi sitting in front of him, it's impolite. He didn't expect Lin Yi to hear it because the wind and propellers in his ears were too noisy. As a result, Lin Yi moved the PP and leaned directly into his arms. Teacher Lin, don't be too reserved, we are all children of the martial arts world, she said a few years ago. The martial arts drama made Lin Yi learn to use this vocabulary. Cautiously, Lin Yi was laughed at by roast, and then he did not answer. He bent his head and fastened his seatbelt attentively. But when he tied it up, he realized that Lin Dajuan in front was tightly gripping the handle by the door. Because they need to parachute later, the two of them are sitting directly by the door. Although it hasn't taken off yet, Lin Yi has started to be afraid. It wasn't until one hand reached out from behind and pulled on the shoulder strap of her safety device that she pulled out of her fear. Don't worry, I've been dancing more than 100 times over the years, and I can still talk to you. Your words made me even more afraid. It was said to be scared, but in fact, when Lin Yi reached out and pulled his seatbelt for him just now, the faint smell of tobacco wafted from the other person's finger, which stabilized Lin Yi's emotions a lot. In the past, she used to dislike the smell of tobacco, but for some reason, this time the smell of tobacco can make her feel an inexplicable sense of security. Perhaps it was the rescue last month. Thinking about it, the plane took off. With the sudden sense of weightlessness possessed her, Lin Yi's first reaction was to grab onto her seatbelt, and she happened to grab onto Lin Yi, who had not yet retracted her hand. Lin Yi's smooth palm rested on the back of his hand, and after a wave of his heart, he quickly restrained his mind and shouted. Relax, relax, take a deep breath, fear is right, but you have to face this fear. The plane flew higher and higher, and while facing the fear in her heart, Lin Yi also had to deal with the filming in front of her, replying with nonsense such as, it's okay, good scenery, and, so interesting, with a smile. Hearing this, Lin Yi behind him rolled his eyes a bit. People who have not tried high-altitude skydiving a few times will only have fear and fear. How could there be so many emotions? That group of idiots on the program team. The plane rose higher and higher, gradually sinking into the clouds. At the same time, Lin Yi thoughtfully put on a protective eye mask for Lin Yi. And he placed the video recorder on her wrist in front of her delicate little face, gently pointing to the halo under her feet. This is a rainbow halo gradually formed by sunlight reflecting through clouds and mist. When Lin Yi finished listening to Lin Yi's answer, she didn't hesitate to praise her and gave him a thumbs up. Continuing to rise, Lin Yi lowered his head and glanced at his wristwatch before starting to check the equipment on both of them again. As they had already reached an altitude of over 3,000 meters, the height of this parachute jump was 4 kilometers. In another moment, the plane rose to 4 kilometers. Lin Yi moved his buttocks directly to the outside of the cabin and made a good posture, while whispering in Lin Yi's ear, "Keep the posture, banana position leaning against me, understand?" At this moment, Lin Yi, whose whole body was tense and stiff, instinctively nodded, and then let Lin Yi lean his small head against him. The wild and howling wind in the high altitude swept over her face, messing up her hair. But the tightly pursed little mouth indicated her inherent stubbornness. Lin Yi felt the nervousness and fear of Lin Yi in his arms, but at this moment, there was no time for him to comfort her. Sitting in front of the cabin door, stepping on the crossbar, taking a deep breath, standing up, holding the cabin wall, turning back and gesturing to the camera before jumping down. Subsequently, several people who followed the shooting also jumped down. Lin Yi and Lin Yi, who had just jumped off, rolled in the air twice. Amidst these two somersaults, Lin Yi heard Lin Yi's exclamation, but he didn't speak. Instead, he quickly opened the small umbrella used as a guide, as a buffer, while preventing the two from rolling freely in the air. With his arms open, Lin Yi saw Lin Yi's clenched hands and patted her, gesturing for her to open her arms like himself. Then Lin Yi regained some rationality and quickly followed suit. "Open your previously tightly closed eyes and gaze towards the vast expanse of white clouds." But before she could appreciate anything, in just an instant, the two of them passed through the clouds and saw the ant-like ground and the blue sea below. The circular earth, with its heart-wrenching curvature, was vividly displayed in front of the two at this moment. After sliding vertically for about 1,000 meters, Lin Yi kept paying attention to the locator on his wrist, hoping to let Lin Yi appreciate the high-altitude scenery more. Therefore, he wanted to pull out the parachute in advance. "I don't know if I don't pull it, but if I pull it, it will be bad. Can't open it." At that moment, Lin Yi's eyes behind his protective goggles suddenly widened, and his right hand forcefully pulled open the rope again, starting to struggle to open it. 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. The main parachute couldn't open, and Lin Yi turned to grab the backup parachute. The result is still a useless effort, as if stuck there. Once, twice, 3 times. "Stop trying." Lin Yi endured the strong wind and shouted loudly to Lin Yi in his arms, "The parachute cannot be opened." "Ah!" Lin Yi, who hadn't reacted for a while, paused for a moment before her brain suddenly shook. What? The height from the ground was getting lower and lower, and Lin Yi pulled it again, but it still didn't work. A sigh rang in his heart, and Lin Yi hugged Lin Yi with a strong force, leaned in her ear, and shouted, "We're going to die." This time Lin Yi heard this, her beautiful little face suddenly turned pale. "Teacher Lin Yi, don't scare me, this is not fun at all." "I didn't scare you, I really can't open the parachute. I don't know if someone has touched my parachute bag." Approaching death, Lin Yi's emotions became even calmer and his tone became much calmer. On the contrary, Lin Yi started shouting in terror, and during the shouting, a scene suddenly came to mind. That was before the parachute jump. Her agent seemed to be worried about Lin Yi's skills, taking advantage of Lin Yi's turn to talk to the director. I showed myself the position of the rope opener on Lin Yi's parachute and pulled it. Tell yourself to pay attention to the situation and not be careless. At that time, Lin Yi didn't pay much attention. Now, in the midst of life and death, under the extremely sensitive sixth sense, she felt that this was probably the pull and pulled out the problem. The fear in his eyes grew more and more, and even upon learning of the situation, guilt and apology quickly surged into his heart. "I'm really dying, Lin Yi, Lin Dajuan. Stop talking, I know now. My name is Lin Yi, not Lin Dajuan." Amidst extreme fear, Lin Yi still remembered to correct the way Lin Yi addressed her. A free fall of 4 kilometers is probably less than half a minute. Even if the small umbrella was opened, there wouldn't be much delay. With Lin Yi's words, the height had dropped to nearly a kilometer. The accompanying cameramen had already opened their parachutes and watched as the two of them swooped down to the ground at high speed. This scene scared them, but as insiders, they all understood that there must have been an accident. The following program group has become a mess. As the club owner said, "Did someone touch Lin Yi's umbrella just now?" The agent's face turned pale. Lin Yi and Lin Yuner are finished, and he can't run anywhere. Decades of seconds were not enough to breathe, and it was impossible for Lin Yi and Lin Yuner to adjust their mentality and emotions to accept death. However, Lin Yi could choose either the burial place for the two or the last glimmer of hope. So he grabbed Lin Yuner's arms and swung them backwards, adjusting his posture to fly towards the sea level. Looking at the unchanging sea surface, Lin Yi couldn't even grasp the final height. Alas, it's also my fault for being careless. So he gritted his teeth and exerted a strong force on his waist, which had been exercising in bed for many years. The powerful core turned Lin Yuner in his arms into him and placed him behind him. "I can only do this. It's up to you later, Lin Yuner." At the same time, a down-to-earth remark drifted into Lin Yuner's heart, causing waves to rise. Actually, just as Lin Yi was sliding towards the sea level with him, Lin Yuner guessed his thoughts, but he didn't expect Lin Yi to actually make a cushion for himself. Moved, guilty, afraid, frightened, apologetic. Wait. Numerous emotions tangled together in Lin Yuner's mind, but there was no time for her to savor them. With an unprecedented impact, it hit her back. In that moment, Lin Yuner seemed to hear a faint "sorry," and fell into endless darkness. Division line, in the dormitory of the teenage years, in Lin Yuner's boudoir, on a small bed. Ha! With a sudden gasp for breath, Lin Yuner, who was originally lying in bed, suddenly sat up and woke up from her dream, sweating profusely. "The memory in my mind is still stuck in the panic and huge impact just now, but the next second it turns into confusion after looking around. Dormitory. When did I return to the dormitory? At the same time. On the other side, inside a hotel next to the East Gate of Seoul." Similarly to Lin Yuner, there was a young man sleeping in a long pants hoodie. After waking up from a dream, I looked at this unfamiliar environment and then lowered my head to look at my tender hands and feet, murmuring, "What's the situation, isn't it hanging up? Or am I dreaming?" Turning his head, he grabbed the phone next to his pillow, and in a moment of panic, the phone's appearance changed without even noticing, so he pressed the screen to light up. 8.37, Tuesday, March 5, 2013, the 24th day of the first lunar month. Awakening of insects suitable. Decoration, burial, coffin removal, coming of age ceremony, formal attire avoid. Building houses, treating illnesses, cooking, and visiting patients. Weather forecast: Seoul, East Gate District 6 degrees 10 degrees/1 degree. Looking at the display on the screen, Lin Yi remained silent for a long time. After finally exhaling a sigh of relief, he murmured, "This jumping and smashing not only broke through the barriers of space, but also crossed the river of time." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Meeting in Fate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Meeting in Fate. Ernie, you've been daydreaming since waking up. What's wrong? Are you too tired? Jiuzhan, who had washed up in the morning, looked at Lin Yuner sitting on the sofa in the living room for a long time before greeting him with great concern. She knew that in the past 2 months, due to the return trip, everyone had been flying on both sides of the Neon and Peninsula, and it was indeed a bit tiring. As the top popular member of the team, Lin Yuner has gained more endorsements and advertising shoots than them. It is normal for her to feel even more tired when busy. However, even though Jiuzhan shouted a few times, Lin Yuner on the sofa still stared blankly at the things on the coffee table, her eyes staring blankly. Until a figure lightly patted her shoulder from behind. "Yuner, are you okay? Under physical contact, it was only then that Lin Yi's spirit returned to her and she turned to look at the captain who had a ball on his head. I opened my mouth and quickly found an excuse in my mind. It's okay, I just woke up and felt a bit dazed. Just take a break. Is it really okay? Jin Taiyan still touched Lin Yi's head with some concern. Lin Yi smiled and shook her head slightly. Then a familiar yet seemingly unseen figure walked over from the side, with flowing long hair, delicate little face, and a perfectly proportioned figure that was both concave and convex. There is only one person in the group who can satisfy these characteristics at once, the iceberg princess. Jessica. What's wrong? Jessica immediately sat next to Lin Yi and raised her hand to touch her forehead. After feeling that there was no fever, she tilted her head slightly and looked at her beautiful eyes. If you're too tired, you can talk to Sean Oppa and relax the itinerary a bit. Sean, Park Sean, their assistant manager during their teenage years, although named very similar to a woman, was actually a chubby middle-aged man. However, they are not the general agent, but they usually tell this chubby guy about anything because he has a good personality and is easy to talk about. Listening to the familiar name in her ear, Lin Yi had not seen the chubby guy Jessica mentioned in years before her rebirth, because the other party would retire, get married, and have children in the next 2 years. But when Jessica said this, she instinctively shook her head. It's really okay, Ernie. I guess I'm just a bit tired, and I just woke up feeling a bit dazed. I'll just sit for a while. Then pay attention to your physical condition. They were all adults now, and Jessica didn't say much to Lin Yi. After caring, she quickly got up and washed up. Then Lin Yi sat on the sofa, watching figures that she had not seen in the dormitory for a long time appear before her, replaying scenes that had only appeared in her memory before. The memories and feelings hidden deep in the mind gradually resurface, and some muscles and nerves tremble slightly under the burst of emotions. If it weren't for the years of her acting career in her past life, where she had already grasped control of her emotions, Lin Yi would probably have burst into tears and emotions on the spot. I watched Cui Xiuying fight with Quan Yoli, Jin Taiyan and Li Shengui roast, Su Zhuxian tell Jin Xiaoyuan about science popularization, and all this. Lin Yi slowly straightened her waist, her chest slightly bulging, and took a deep breath and chest expansion. It's great, I'm still here, and everyone is still here, he said with a grin. Fortunately, the TV dramas of her past life had already ruined the theme of rebirth, so Lin Yi quickly accepted it. She only remembered the figure who came to protect her, not sure if he was also like herself. Thinking of this, the smile that had just opened up gradually faded back. Get up and wash up. On the other hand, Lin Yi, who was being remembered by Lin Yi, was laughing and being scolded. On the other end of the phone was his own Empress Dowager, as he had come to Seoul without the consent of his family. It can be considered stealing. Like him, there are also many friends in the same field who have started their graduation trips in advance or taken their girlfriends on a leisurely trip. Although according to the timeline, the school has said that it is possible to go out for internships. But those who can go out are classmates who have received offers in advance, not guys like Lin Yi who sneak out. However, as an art major, the teachers didn't pay much attention to these naturally promiscuous dolls. They just called back to report to their respective parents. Mom, as the saying goes, reading 10,000 books is better than traveling 10,000 miles. Then I followed the golden and jade advice left by my ancestors and came out to learn and grow. Lin Yi, who had not yet graduated in his previous life, could easily escape this calamity, let alone his more eloquent words after being reborn. Another 10 minutes had passed, and Lin Yi, who hung up the phone, perfectly survived the emotional fluctuations after being reborn in the familiar voice and tone of his mother, and perfectly received the old memories that emerged from the depths of his memory. After finding the reason why he came to Seoul in his past life in his memory, Lin Yi muttered, I came to pursue stars in my previous life. Do I still want to continue this time? Then there was a moment of silence before finally getting up and packing up. But it's not about embarking on the return journey, but about going back to see the peak of the Korean entertainment industry. After all, everyone has come. At around 9 o'clock in the morning, Lin Yi stepped on a pair of Air Force One and arrived at S, where the sky was still blue and the clouds were white. The closer you walk towards the M Entertainment Company building, the more people on the same path there are. In addition to some local fans, there are also many fans who come from all over the world for pilgrimage. Carrying gifts, posters, and physical albums one by one, they eagerly headed towards their dream idol, hoping to have a romantic and dramatic encounter with their favorite idol. With excitement, the pace also quickened a lot, and some even started charging. Only Lin Yi took a bite of the sandwich calmly on one side, carrying a can of yogurt on the other, and walked with a backpack on his back. The eyes that were half squinted when I met Lin Yi in my previous life were now fully opened. Because he is not as unkempt as he is now, college students who are about to graduate are still very good at dressing themselves up. Wearing a comfortable warm-colored sports style, paired with slightly youthful and delicate facial features, this pair of amber-colored eyes adds an epic buff to the overall effect. Amazing, eye-catching, and eye-catching. Under these eyes, the sense of youthfulness has been further enhanced by 3 parts purity, 3 parts aloofness, 3 parts softness, and the remaining part continues to add to everything before. And that's also why Lin Yi was able to learn the true essence of photography in school in his past life. These amber eyes can be said to have made extraordinary contributions. Slowly, when Lin Yi had finished eating the sandwich, he arrived at S in front of the building door of M Entertainment. As soon as I arrived here, I heard the screams and cheers of many fans in front of me, and then my body, which had not yet stabilized, passively gathered forward. Listening to this shout, it seems like they came to work during their teenage years. Surprisingly, it happened so coincidentally. Lin Yi muttered, but his hands were holding up the food and drink in his hands. It's not that he's afraid of not having anything to eat, but rather that he's worried about touching someone else's clothes and doesn't want to argue over this matter. He's too afraid of trouble. However, it was his somewhat unconventional move that attracted a few beautiful figures who happened to come over to the fans to receive gifts and take photos together. One of them is Lin Yi. She pushed the gift back with a very happy smile, then only took the folded letter and was about to say something, only to see the sandwich and yogurt held high in the corner of her eyes. The interesting scene made her cast her gaze over. Coincidentally, the boy holding the food also noticed her coming, so he instinctively straightened his waist, and his fresh and handsome appearance became the focus of attention among many female fans like a standout chicken. There seemed to be a feeling that the two people's gaze was colliding in the air. Just that one glance. A sense of destiny slowly rose in their hearts. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The Coming Colorful Future. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The Coming Colorful Future. There is actually a significant difference in appearance between Lin Yi 10 years later and Lin Yi 10 years ago. One is a middle-aged photographer who is unkempt and has a scruffy beard. One is fresh and tender meat freshly baked from school, with beautiful facial features and fair skin. But none of the above can compare to those rare amber pupils. If Lin Yi were to meet Lin Yi alone, she would probably have to hesitate for a long time based on her face. After all, she had only seen them twice in her previous life. Although I have had a deep impression twice, I have only seen 2 sides. The longest one was just over a week after our first meeting, and then we hung up right after our second meeting, without even having the chance to see each other again. But if this familiar appearance is combined with those distinctive pupils. So Lin Yi could recognize the boy in front of her at a glance, who was the man who protected her from falling from a height of 4 kilometers to the sea yesterday. And this is not a situation that excites her. What excites her is the subtle reaction in the other person's eyes. The gaze that gazed at him was completely different from the gaze of fans or the expression of some passers-by who had first seen him. My familiarity with him was also captured from that gaze. Surprise, confusion, surprise, excitement. After seeing this complex gaze, Lin Yi was almost 100% certain of a situation. That's why the boy in front of me is not only young Lin Yi, but also teacher Lin, who has been reborn and returned with him. Before Lin Yi could fully feel the loneliness of the so-called rebirth, she found another bond in front of her. At this moment, the emotions and heart that had been empty since waking up in the morning and realizing their rebirth were suddenly filled. Fortunately, I am not alone. The same person as myself, and the man in front of me. Moreover, he is a man who has taken care of his own life. However, after recognizing Lin Yi couldn't possibly recognize him in the crowd at this moment, and even looking at him twice was not good. So he quickly withdrew his gaze and continued to smile as he chatted about his daily routine with the fans in front of him. In the crowd, Lin Yi, who also sensed Lin Yi's strange reaction, looked at her figure in shock. After a thought flashed in his mind, he blurted out an internationally recognized language. What the? Just as she finished speaking 2 words, Lin Yi in front of her with a bright smile lifted her head and a pair of agile deer eyes looked at the crowd. Lin Yi's gaze inside made him quickly close his mouth. Surprises come and go quickly. As everyone entered the company during their teenage years, the excitement finally came to an end. Some fans who were still unsatisfied stood still and told their friends how beautiful Yuner Oni was, how cute Taiyan Oni was, how Jessica Oni was smiling, and so on. Only Lin Yi stood in place, gazing in the direction where Lin Yi had just disappeared for a while, quickly finished the sandwich and yogurt in his hand, threw away the garbage, and turned around to find a place to sit for a while and organize his thoughts. Looking back at the bustling road, Lin Yi thought for a moment, crossed the traffic flow, and slipped into the alley directly opposite the entrance and exit of the parking lot. I was originally planning to go in and find a coffee shop to sit in, but Lin Yi realized that he was not the only smart person. The locations of these coffee shops or fried chicken shops were already filled with fans. One by one, they were talking loudly about how familiar and close they were to some idols in the opposite building, and even heard 1 or 2 boastful words. It was precisely those boastful words that made Lin Yi, who had already walked by, stand still and look back at the fans. A cute tall girl came to mind. His sword eyebrows furrowed slightly, and he had not moved his steps for a long time. But in the end, after taking a deep breath, he left his place and went deeper into the alley. 2 minutes later, at a corner of the alley, 2 10,000 denomination banknotes lay quietly in the corner. Lin Yi, who had just walked into the alley, stood in front of them. After looking around a few strange things, he squatted down and picked it up. Time has turned. You can even pick up money while walking. Lin Yi, who muttered a few words, stood still for 2 minutes, giving himself and the person who lost the money a chance before continuing to move forward. Then, after turning a few corners, I found a small snack shop run by a family workshop. Most of the snacks in the store are cheese hot dogs, spicy fried rice cakes, sausage cake strips, cheese balls and other snacks. The aroma was very good, so Lin Yi went straight in and sat down in the corner. I simply ordered a hot dog and a drink for myself, then took out the 2 bills I just found and planned to make the payment. When it came out, it flipped over to the other side that I didn't see earlier, and one of the photos had some text written on it. So he handed one of the bills with no words to the landlady and looked down at the other with words. Bored, I'm so annoyed. Ah, the ghost who found the money, please come and save me quickly. A string of slightly inferior words made Lin Yi laugh as he looked at them. Then carefully fold up the banknote, take out the wallet from the middle of the backpack, and put it inside. Such an interesting experience and small surprise must be preserved. While waiting for the snacks to be served, Lin Yi's right index finger, which was placed on the table, gradually began to stir. Without him, he was a smoker. It's not a physical meaning, but a habitual feeling. I haven't started smoking for 10 years yet, and it wasn't until I joined the crew that I learned how to smoke red double happiness from those scumbags. Apart from being strong enough, Lin Yi also really likes the character she on it. After restless for a few minutes, the snack finally came to the table. Lin Yi quickly took a sip of lemon water to suppress his shock, and then began to organize the chaotic thought process in his mind under the icy water temperature. Firstly, there are two pieces of information that need to be clarified. One is the sudden change in Lin Yi's gaze and joy when she first saw herself. But in Lin Yi's memory, this was his first time visiting the peninsula, and this body was also his first time seeing Lin Yi. Why does the other party have such a reaction? Now that I have been reborn, let my mind wander and think, is it possible that Lin Yi was also reborn in this time and space? Thinking of this, Lin Yi's right hand, holding the chopsticks, suddenly tightened. Actually, he felt very similar just now, so instinctively he almost blurted a vulgar sentence. Looking back calmly now, I am even more certain. Emotions gradually heated up, and the furrowed sword eyebrows were also tightly suppressing the boiling blood. Before everything was answered, it was just my own speculation. Calm down first, then calm down a bit. After sorting out the first information point, Lin Yi quickly shifted his attention to the second information point. Secondly, what should one do after being reborn? As an old salted fish returning to youth, it is definitely impossible for Lin Yi to experience the passion of youth again with fanaticism. At least for now, he has no such thoughts at all. During the 10 years of joining the group in his previous life, all the edges, passion, and dreams of Lin Yi had already been completely erased. The only thing that kept him looking forward to was having sex with various little girls every day, teasing some beautiful women, and finally checking their main body structures, climbing mountains and crossing mountains to search for dragons and catch phoenixes. So this time when Lin Yi returned to his youth, his first thought in the morning was either to return to his home country and marry a little flower who had not yet taken off. While getting a beautiful wife, we can also work together to improve our genes. However, just as Lin Yi thought of this, he suddenly realized that his second idea collided directly with the first information. If it's just her own rebirth, it's easy to say, but if Lin Yi really came back with her, so the future of this world will be colorful. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Shirley, long time no see. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Shirley, long time no see. Inside M's company building, Lin Yi is practicing a dance she hasn't skipped in a long time, relying on her powerful muscle instinctual memory. Half an hour later, with proficient dance steps and familiar movements, Lin Yi could even chat with Jessica and Quan Yoli next to her. And today, people in their teenage years have also discovered a strange phenomenon, which is that Lin Yi is more lively than yesterday. To put it another way, it's just talking nonsense. Especially holding on to Jessica is a bunch of questions that almost drove her crazy. Ah, Lin Yi, what's going on with you today? You woke up without saying a word, and now you're talking so much. Why did you do something wrong? Jessica, who couldn't bear being held back, stopped and looked at her sister with a headache on her face. No, I just miss you, Ernie, Lin Yi said truthfully. As soon as he finished speaking, Quan Yoli next to him stabbed and said, Yi, you're not in love, are you? On this topic, several teammates around threw curious and gossiping glances at Lin Yi. Auni, don't talk nonsense, I don't have it. Quan Yoli's words made Lin Yi look over directly in frustration. At this moment, I really haven't been in a romantic relationship, and my busy schedule is full of time. There is no such thing as the desire for love. Cui Xiuying, on the other hand, said in a very emotional way, there is no time. It is really difficult to talk about it. She hasn't seen her boyfriend for quite some time, even if she doesn't have the time and energy to go back and relax after work. In such a situation, Lin Yi, who is even busier than herself, is simply unable to talk. So what's wrong with you, today? Jessica looked at Lin Yi dejectedly. Lin Yi, on the other hand, stared at the uni in front of her, thinking that in her previous life, she was too busy and nobody paid attention to her thoughts, which led to her walking further and further on the fork in the road. However, all of this seems to be related to a rotten person with a shoe-pulled face. There were many thoughts in my heart, but they didn't show on my face. I just continued to deny them. It's really okay, why don't you believe me? The main group of people were teammates who had walked all the way from trainees. Their lifestyle habits and personality had already seeped into their bones, which led to Lin Yi's slightly unusual reaction being infinitely amplified and captured in their hearts. If it weren't for everyone living and running together these days, and Lin Yi not having any special circumstances, she would probably have been under pressure and subjected to unequal questioning. After finally getting rid of the suspicion again, Lin Yi remembered seeing Lin Yi at the company gate not long ago. For this teacher Lin, she has many thoughts surging in her heart, but they are all suppressed one by one. Her biggest expectation at this moment is to hope that Lin Yi doesn't run too far, so that she can find the other person. As for whether Lin Yi didn't notice his gaze, Lin Yi was not worried. They are all people in their 30s, and if they still can't understand such a clear look in their eyes, it's really a waste of time. Not to mention, Lin Yi and she are both veteran of the mixed caste. And thinking of the international language that instinctively spewed out after the other person and herself met, Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh happily. Perhaps everything else is just my own speculation, but this unfinished sentence is undoubtedly evidence. Lin Yi, who had just laughed, found it difficult to come together because she had guessed everything. Without contact information, there is no opportunity to meet. What is the difference between meeting someone and a stranger? Plato's approach also needs to be based on communication and exchange. Headache. Lin Yi grabbed her hair and got up to walk out of the practice room, intending to wash her face and wake up. As soon as I walked to the door of the restroom, I almost collided with a figure coming out head on. The other person was wiping their wet little hands with their head down. Just as they were about to bump into Lin Yi, they suddenly stopped and startled themselves. Ah, it scared me. Ernie, didn't it hit you, did it? They said. However, at this moment, Lin Yi looked at the figure in front of her with a stunned expression on her face. Her small mouth opened and closed slightly, repeating it many times. Under the increasingly puzzled gaze of the other person, her voice trembled as she called out her name. Oh, Shirley, long time no see. Afterwards, she suddenly became speechless and choked up. She opened her arms and hugged the girl in front of her tightly, afraid that she would walk away again. Long time no see. I repeated again, my voice trembling even more. Ernie, what's wrong? Shirley stood there in a bit of panic, not daring to move and letting Lin Yi hold her. And I keenly felt Lin Yi's slightly trembling body, not knowing why she was sad, let alone why she suddenly hugged me. Shirley probably never thought that Lin Yi hugged her not because of sadness, but because of excitement and joy. This hug lasted for several minutes, and then Lin Yi gradually calmed down. She blinked her sour eyes and nose a few times, and lowered her head to tidy up her appearance. Across from her, Shirley stood obediently and quietly, looking at her little Uni, wanting to comfort but not knowing where to start. It's okay, I just thought of something and got a little excited. I didn't scare you, did I? Lin Yi, who had tidied up her appearance, raised her small face again and looked at the figure she had not seen in a long time before her, revealing a very bright smile. Shirley shook her head and looked at Lin Yi with some concern. Ernie, as long as you're okay. What have you been doing lately? You haven't even messaged and chatted with Ernie anymore. Looking at Shirley, Lin Yi reached out and touched her already taller head with some pity. This intimate gesture once again left Shirley confused, but she still replied, recently, I have been running business shows and programs, as well as some music festival stages. As for the information Lin Yi mentioned, the two of them did occasionally send messages to chat before their debut, but gradually lost contact with each other after their debut due to busyness. The rest can only rely on meeting during the singing period, or chatting a few times at the company before hastily leaving. I used to be a bit busy before, but remember to send me messages in the future. Eating, chatting, or shopping, Ernie is waiting for you, you know. Although Shirley didn't explicitly say it, Lin Yi also realized it, but the past is over, and rebirth is beyond redemption. And what remains to be compensated for, she will do her best to do it well. Well, I got it. Although Shirley was puzzled why Lin Yi suddenly felt like this, the concern in her tone warmed her heart and she smiled and nodded. After a while, looking at Shirley's departing figure, Lin Yi stood at the door of the restroom for a moment before turning around and entering. As she entered, she stood in front of the dressing mirror in the bathroom, looking at her young self in the mirror, pursed her lips, and finally made a decision for herself. Let's start with the matter of Jiuzhan Oni. After finishing speaking, Lin Yi's serious face suddenly collapsed, and she muttered with a gloomy expression, but the most important thing at this moment is to contact Teacher Lin first. It's really annoying. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Rebirth or Cohabitation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Rebirth or Cohabitation. At noon, after sitting in the snack bar for a long time, Lin Yi, who couldn't resist the look of his wife and boss, ran to pack a rice and vegetable roll and came back to S across from the building of M Entertainment Company. There were other fans who had the same idea as him, so Lin Yi hesitated for a moment and then rubbed aside for about 10 meters before retreating to the corner. At this moment, he and Lin Yi inside were both feeling a headache because they didn't know how to get in touch, and there was no opportunity or any equivalent information for them to see the results. So now it feels like waiting for fate. Fate has come, perhaps we will meet in a corner. If there is no fate, you may not be able to see people even when it gets dark. The sun was shining brightly above my head. Fortunately it was early March, and the weather in Seoul was still icy cold, not very hot. However, being exposed to the sun was not a good situation after all, so Lin Yi looked at the situation where there was still no sound, and found the entrance of an unopened store, squatting under the semi-open sunshade to cool off. At the same time, he took out the bottle of drink that he had just brought with him when packing rice and vegetable roll and drank it, but he took it back after drinking 2 mouthfuls. I have to say, it's better to drink Fat House water. At that moment, a burst of screams and cheers echoed across the street again. Then, when Lin Yi looked up, he saw a group of figures crossing the busy road and rushing towards S at the entrance of Company M. Over there, Su Xian looked at the Ernie beside him with some frustration. She said she could ask her assistant to help buy it, but the other party insisted on pulling her out together. No, the road hasn't even crossed yet, so it's stuck here. Fortunately, there were not many fans waiting, about 20 people, so the two of them quickly got rid of those fans, or in other words, they crossed the road again with them and arrived at the snack street across from the company. And Lin Yi, who pulled Su Xian out to cushion her back, was wearing a pair of sunglasses. The dear eyes under the sunglasses were smiling and staring at the figure squatting in the opposite corner. Just like the other person's habits on the set, it's still a familiar posture and familiar taste. Just looking younger, not so messy anymore, it looks pretty good. When Su Xian crossed the road and saw Lin Yi walking towards the corner, he quickly shouted. Ernie, aren't you going to buy fried rice cakes? Let's go this way. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi grabbed her arm and said, let's go buy some snacks first. Isn't there a convenience store over there? Even at the entrance of the alley. Although Su Xian frowned and couldn't understand, he still followed Lin Yi over. When Lin Yi saw Lin Yi walking towards him, he quickly stood up and stared at the figure with his clear eyes, which were still in the state of a prospective graduate, for 2 seconds. Then he leaned a few more steps to the side, widening the distance from the other party. Lin Yi, who also saw this scene, did not react too much because she was also well aware that there were still many of her own fans following behind. Just as he passed by Lin Yi, he naturally looked at Su Xian and asked a question. Busy schedule, why don't we go back to the Bar Lupin downstairs for barbecue tonight? Ernie, touring requires body management. Su Xian tightened his eyebrows and gave Lin Yi a responsible warning. "Ah, I want to say something good to eat, I don't even know how late I need to practice tonight," Lin Yi said again. "There will be an activity tomorrow, it should be around 7 or 8 o'clock, Su Xian continued to mix the assists in ignorance. After just 2 short sentences, the two of them naturally walked around the corner and walked towards the convenience store over there. And behind them, Lin Yi also stretched lazily, let out a long moan, brushed past the fans following behind them, and left. Time: 8:35 p.m. Address: in a private room of the Bar Lupin barbecue restaurant in Qingtan Cave. Lin Yi, who was sitting in the private room with barbecue, calmly looked up and spoke in a familiar tone when he heard that the door had been opened. "Here we go." It's a bit late, I'm sorry." At the entrance, Lin Yi naturally took off her windbreaker, revealing the tight sweater inside and shrinking her slender neck. It's drizzling outside, it's so cold," she said. "It's better to eat first," Lin Yi said, but the speed of picking meat in his hands didn't stop at all. But when Lin Yi saw Lin Yi grilling the beef until it was fully cooked, she first let out a "hey" sound and then grabbed the clip in his hand with disdain. "I'll do it, you eat it, I can't eat too much." Lin Yi didn't say anything, but after a he continued to work on his meal. "When did it arrive?" Lin Yi flipped through the grilled meat and picked up something that was already edible and placed it in front of Lin Yi. Looking up at the situation, Lin Yi thought for a moment and said, "It's been almost half an hour since we arrived. Around 7 o'clock, I followed the online information and came here to find the store. I quickly found it. What do you say now?" After finishing the meat on the baking tray, Lin Yi put down her clamp and looked at Lin Yi with some seriousness. "How do I know? I was originally thinking of saying it's all over, but I had to do this one." Lin Yi, who swallowed a mouthful of niu wuhua, was asked this question, but couldn't give Lin Yi any answer. Both of them returned to the present on their first day, and being able to sit down and eat so calmly can already be considered as having strong determination. Finally, a famous domestic saying was given, "Take it as it comes, and let it be." "Are you still planning to take the same path as before?" Lin Yi said with a look of anticipation and unease in her eyes. "I don't know, actually when I didn't go to your company in the morning, I thought about saying that I would go back to my home country and find an unknown celebrity to get married and have children, improve my genes. But you also came back together, which made me a bit confused." Lin Yi muttered, repeatedly lighting and playing with his chopsticks on the dipping plate. Across from her, Lin Yi's eyes lit up with a hint of happiness, but she still looked at her quietly. "If you don't know, it's okay. I don't think too much about what I want to do alone. Everyone is drunk and I just wake up and live my own life. But knowing that there is another person in this world who exists like me, there are so many thoughts. Perhaps it will breed a different kind of loneliness, it's hard to say." After finishing 2 paragraphs, Lin Yi turned his gaze back to Lin Yi and said, "What are your plans? You know my situation, I definitely can't run away. So why don't you make a fuss and stay here for a while longer?" If it were Lin Yi before today, she would definitely not speak so directly. But at this moment, her mentality became very clear after seeing death, and polite nonsense was enough to talk to others. Don't bother talking to the man in front of her. The outsiders here refer to everyone except for the man in front of them. Lin Yi did not refuse or agree, but continued to take a bite of grilled meat and put it in his mouth, pointing to his backpack in the corner. "I'll arrange it for you. I just bought a small apartment last year." Lin Yi glanced at it and immediately made a suggestion. Lin Yi exclaimed in a very artificial voice, "It's hidden deep enough that it hasn't exploded yet." After staring at the guy in front of her who was indeed somewhat lacking in fighting, Lin Yi whispered, "It's a bit small, just don't mind. Not to be disgusted, but as a facade from your teenage years, it wouldn't be good to bring a stranger back to your apartment like this. Hee hee, then I'll rent you a room. Did I speak just now?" Have a meal, and after finishing, hurry up and take a look. Tracking and collecting are very important, tracking and collecting are very important, tracking and collecting are very important. If you need to be on the list, tracking and collecting data are very necessary. I hope to see this book on the new book list tomorrow Monday, so the cute new author needs everyone's help. Thank you in advance. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Jiuzhan Magpie Nest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 9. Satisfied Lin Yi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Satisfied Lin Yi. After waking up from sleep, Lin Yi opened his eyes and looked at the ceiling above his head, with a bunch of thoughts racing around in his mind. The impact of some scenes from his previous life after being reborn yesterday, coupled with some memories of the current timeline, flashed wildly in his mind, causing him to suffer from insomnia last night and only fall asleep in the middle of the night. Rubbing his eyes, grabbing his hair, Lin Yi habitually reached out to the bedside to find his phone. It was only after taking it that I realized it was not the domestically produced model from my previous life, but rather the posthumous work of Mr. Chiao, the fifth-generation fruit. I really came back. Looking at this style with a slightly smaller feel compared to a few years later, Lin Yi shook it in his hand and let out a sigh of emotion. After murmuring, Lin Yi got up and left the bed. He just turned around to look at the big bed before entering the bathroom. The faint fragrance when he lay down last night made him laugh very happily. A few minutes later, he stood at the French window of the living room after washing. Through the window, you can see some streets and alleys of EP1 not far away, and even vaguely see the slope where a big news was made in a previous life, while this apartment is in a community. The reason why Lin Yi is interested in this community is because it has a comprehensive club. All services such as 3 meals, sauna, swimming, spa, physical therapy, laundry, dry cleaning, and home delivery are within the scope of this club's services. Thinking of the situation that Lin Yi introduced to him last night, Lin Yi's first thought in retrospect is, it is too suitable for the life of otaku men and women. You don't have to go out at all. Staying alone here makes him feel dizzy and dark. At this moment, a text message pulled Lin Yi back from his daze, turned around to look at the phone placed on the coffee table, and picked it up to look at the screen. It's none other than Lin Yi. Have you woken up yet? I've finished my morning itinerary, so you're not still asleep, are you? I'll go to the apartment to find you later. Don't sleep, wake up. Looking at the time again, it was already November 30th, noon, no wonder I slept so comfortably. Just got up, when will you come over? As soon as the message was sent out, the other party immediately responded. I need to go back to the dormitory and then go there. Can I bring you something? Looking at Lin Yi's reply, Lin Yi thought for a moment and looked at the refrigerator in the kitchen. Go to the supermarket and bring some things and snacks. Your refrigerator doesn't even have water, fortunately I brought a bottle of it myself last night. By the way, I like to drink ice luo, get lost. At around 12 o'clock, Lin Yi skillfully entered the apartment with a password. As soon as she entered, she shouted loudly, "Oh, can't you hear me? Can't you come over and help me pick up something?" On the sofa in the living room, Lin Yi walked down with a smile and walked towards the entrance. I thought you wouldn't buy it. Hunger to death, you forget it. Lin Yi picked up the 2 large bags in her hand and then turned outside to retrieve her shoulder bag. Seeing this, Lin Yi grinned and bent down to take the other 2 large bags of snacks and take out food from the ground at the door into the kitchen. Then, he placed the snacks and some ingredients in the refrigerator according to their positions. That bag of takeout was picked up by Lin Yi. When he finally tidied up and walked out of the kitchen, Lin Yi had already laid out all the takeout on the dining table. It's very rich. He leaned over to take a look at Lin Yi, who was quite surprised and looked at Lin Yi. It's all Chinese food, where did you go to pack it? There happens to be a Chinese restaurant near the dormitory, sit down and eat. Lin Yi, who had wiped her hands clean, pulled out her seat and sat directly on it. Without hesitation, Lin Yi sat across from her and said, "You still have to go to the office this afternoon." "I'm not going anymore. Everyone has a schedule today, so we'll gather tonight to rehearse." Lin Yi shook her head and said, "I came here this time to talk to you." Lin Yi, who had a piece of pork ribs sandwiched between his eyebrows, looked across from him and said, "What are we talking about? If I were to say that the reason why the parachute failed at that time was because my agent moved your parachute bag, would you be angry?" Actually, after learning about Lin Yi's situation yesterday morning, Lin Yi has been considering this issue and whether to tell him. Last night, she was also surrounded by a bunch of thoughts, and like Lin Yi, she had insomnia for most of the time before falling asleep. However, she is not as comfortable as Lin Yi and can sleep until noon. After squinting for a while, she has to get up and go to the beauty salon to get a look. And now speaking it out is her ultimate choice. There's nothing to be angry about, the opportunity for rebirth. "I should be grateful to your talent as a manager," Lin Yi smiled slightly. "What if this situation wouldn't happen?" Lin Yi continued to ask. "Then I'll just die. How could we even talk about getting angry? Death pays off debts, don't think too much. My current idea is to plan to live a good life and not have any unnecessary regrets." Such a straightforward response, however, struck a lightning bolt in Lin Yi's mind, awakening her persistence. "Ah, that's right, it's all from the past life," she said. "Well, I thought you had figured it out last night, but I didn't expect you were still thinking about this." Looking down at some information in the mobile phone, Lin Yi replied while eating, and he did not forget to complain about roast. "Mr. Lin, we have only come back for a day. It's very good to accept it so quickly." Lin Yi, who was complained about, was indignant. Indeed, compared to Lin Yi, who has watched countless Rebirth online articles, Lin Yi has only watched some TV dramas. So compared to Lin Yi's subconscious mental familiarity with the current situation, rehearsals in her dreams, and occasional expectations, Lin Yi really relied on her experience and emotional regulation to withstand the impact of this rebirth. Although Lin Yi's acceptance ability is closely related to his experience, he ultimately has a little more virtual experience than Lin Yi. "Let's not talk about that anymore, let's talk about Jessica's situation." Lin Yi waved his hand and shouted to stop. "It's not good to talk about such things too much. In addition to touching personal emotions, there are also times when talking too much is inevitable, and it can be troublesome if someone really hears it. Perhaps most people think you're joking, but if you really get caught up in it, it's troublesome." Perhaps Lin Yi is a bit worried, but being too worried is always safer than being reckless. We'll have to talk to Lin Yi about this sooner or later. But Lin Yi still needs to clarify one more thing. Let's talk a little more. Lin Yi looked at her with a puzzled expression. "At the last moment of skydiving, why did you think of providing me with a cushion? You know, there's a chance of survival in that situation." Lin Yi put down her chopsticks and stared closely at Lin Yi's amber eyes with those bright deer eyes. Seriously, carefully, not intending to let go of any flickering gaze in the other person's eyes. After listening to this question, Lin Yi's expression froze for a moment. After a moment of contemplation, his soared eyebrows furrowed slightly, he took a deep breath of air and said, "Your question is a bit brain-burning." Lin Yi didn't speak, still staring at him. Actually, at that time, there was no such thing as an idea. "I instinctively felt that I was dragging you down, so I made a cushion for you. This is the truth." At that time, Lin Yi didn't think much. If there was anything to say, it was the apology he said in his words. Now, looking back, would you think it's foolish or inappropriate? Lin Yi said closer. Lin Yi smiled this time and said, "This proposition is too false. If I had to look back and think about it with a clear understanding of the outcome, I wouldn't have changed it. If you insist on an answer, I might even follow your ideas and give you a CPU, which can also harvest a wave of your favorability. Why bother? After finishing speaking, Lin Yi glanced at her and lowered his head to continue eating. Although Lin Yi, who was sitting across from her, couldn't quite understand what a CPU was, by connecting the sentences before and after, her intelligent mind understood a rough idea. While this guy was feeling frustrated with his messy answers, he smiled happily in his heart. Do you think Lin Yi really wants any answer? Would she not be aware of this situation? No, she just wanted to see what Lin Yi said. As for what the answer is, it doesn't matter no matter what. She can accept it all. However, Lin Yi's honesty made her even more joyful and satisfied. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. If you don't sleep, I'll sleep. If you sleep, I won't sleep. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. If you don't sleep, I'll sleep. If you sleep, I won't sleep. After lunch, Lin Yi consciously picked up the garbage, and when he finished, Lin Yi also walked out of the kitchen with 2 plates of cut fruits. There are still 2 boxes of cut ones in the refrigerator. If you don't eat them today, you'll have to throw them away tomorrow. Remember. Okay, but remember not to buy any durian. I refuse the taste of durian. You can eat it outside, don't bring it back to me. The incredibly natural familiarity did not reveal the situation where the two of them had never met even a few times in their lifetimes. Because in this familiarity, it is based on the fact that 2 people have experienced life and death together, crossing the river of time. Lin Yi smiled happily as she listened to Lin Yi's answer. Why, durian is so delicious, fragrant, soft, and sticky. Let's give it a try next time. If you dare to take me to try durian, I dare to take you to play parachuting again. Lin Yi sat down on his previous sofa seat, stabbing an apple and putting it in his mouth. Humph hum. When it comes to skydiving, Lin Yi still has some lingering palpitations, so she can only express her dissatisfaction with a few cold snorts. Then the two sat on the sofa, bored and watching a movie. When it comes to boredom, it's not really boring. Because in some movies, both parties may have heard of the plot, but in reality, they haven't watched it. The main reason is that the former focused on wandering around the flower world in his previous life, while the latter focused on his work schedule in his previous life. So it's just hearsay about some plot and explosive points, and I don't have time to watch the specific content. Looking at it, Lin Yi slightly tilted his head and looked at the quiet Lin Yi next to him. For the reason of staying at home, Lin Yi tied a ponytail and hung it behind her head. At first glance, her fair and smooth face showed a faint smile. A pretty cheong nose, slightly dizzy cheeks, and cherry lips that exhaled like orchids were shining brightly against the sunlight outside the window. Underneath the beautiful oval face, there is a very tight and tender neck that can be blown and broken, with skin cream like snow. Going further down, what are you looking at? A burst of laughter interrupted Lin Yi's gaze, and he raised his eyebrows to look at Lin Yi, who happened to be in the same eye with a smile like a flower. It's rare to have such a close look at the appearance of a girl's face. Lin Yi didn't make any excuses and said he wanted to see it, so he did. Lin Yi's round big eyes narrowed with a smile and said, "So, I didn't disappoint you, did I?" "Well, it looks better than meeting in the previous life." As expected, being young is the capital. Lin Yi, who went a little too far, was then attacked by Lin Yi's white eyes. "Oh, I was in my 30s at that time, and I was also very beautiful and not good at that time." Inside, crispy high, zang. Taking a bite of the fruit, Lin Yi vaguely raised his hand in agreement. But this obviously perfunctory attitude made Lin Yi laugh angrily. "You bastard. By the way, it's rare to start over again. Would you like to take this opportunity and find some better scripts to hitchhike?" Lin Yi gave his idea. "I try my best, but this kind of thing is all about company coordination, and it's difficult for me to get the resources for the script. Even if I have connections, they have been accumulated in my previous life. Now that I don't have anything, I can't just go find someone else. Lin Yi's idea silenced Lin Yi for a moment. In fact, she was also thinking about this issue while running the itinerary this morning, but it was shattered by the situation just mentioned. Finally, he sighed and said, "Take your time, it's just begun." Lin Yi glanced at her and continued to look towards the TV. Half of the movie's time passed in the blink of an eye, during which the two of them watched and chatted about various details from their previous lives. During the conversation, we have a clearer understanding of each other. After continuing the conversation for a while, Lin Yi next to her yawned in time, and she felt a bit tired as she woke up early. "You still have to rehearse tonight. Do you want to take a break now? I won't sleep anymore. I have to come out of the dormitory again, it's so troublesome." Lin Yi shook her head. Lin Yi, who was amused by the answer, gave her a funny look and said, "Lin Jiuzhan, this is your house." Ah. Upon hearing this title again, Lin Yi looked at Lin Yi with some melancholy. It's not really annoying, it's just that she remembered the memory of weightless parachuting. "I'll give it all to you, I don't want it." "Then you'll be sleepy, I'll go in and rest." The amber-colored eyes rolled, and Lin Yi stood up with a gesture. But Lin Yi suddenly got up first and said, "Teacher Lin, how could you do this? You don't let me rest even if you don't rest." Lin Yi smiled. "Didn't you just wake up from sleep? I'm tired again. Eat and sleep well, eat well. This is my life motto. This is my house, so if you want to rest, I will also rest. Then you go in, if you don't go in, I'll go in." In this way, Lin Yi was half coaxed and half deceived by Lin Yi and stuffed into the bedroom. As she walked into the bedroom, she glanced at the messy bedding and wrinkled her cute nose. "This guy is really lazy," she said then. When he noticed that the blanket was still his own bed, he furrowed his brows again and later defended the man outside, saying, "Forget it, I guess I just came here. I'm not sure where the supermarket is, so I didn't have a chance to change it." After self-defense, looking at the soft bed, I couldn't help but feel the heaviness of my eyelids. I rushed up and covered myself with a blanket, intending to take a nap. Just a few hours before Lin Yi woke up, the man's breath still lingered on the bedding and pillow. The breath made her shrink her head a few times, and finally she covered her head with the bedding and fell asleep with a bunch of messy thoughts. After seeing Lin Yi enter the bedroom, Lin Yi began to solve some problems for himself, the most important of which was the visa. Thinking of this, Lin Yi took out his phone and dialed the phone number he was very familiar with in his previous life. The other person said that the number had not changed since it was activated. In his previous life, Lin Yi didn't have a chance to verify it, but this time he can do it well. After 3 busy tones, the phone was connected and the verification was successful. "Hello, who?" The voice on the other end of the phone was a bit thick, sounding like they were around 30+ years old. "Introduced by Lao LV, I want to get a work permit." Students who play art have 2 extremes. Either they follow the rules and make a living in China. Either it's the kind of hot and bustling, with a global network. To explain, in the words of a senior brother Lin Yi knew at the time, what kind of art student do you consider if you don't go out and make waves in various countries while studying art? So if you want to go abroad and fly around, you can't just worry about the messy visa issues in those countries. So later, Lin Yi met an intermediary from his hands. As long as he had money, he wanted to go abroad and tell the other party that it would take a normal week to handle it. If you add money, it will be received on the same day. It is said that there are other services, but at that time Lin Yi didn't ask much and didn't need them. After fixing the crew, there was no further contact, and occasionally 1 or 2 contacts were just to help the crew wipe their buttocks. Otherwise, how could one be called a teacher? Being so familiar with directors and producers, besides one's own skills, there are naturally some powerful connections. So when I wanted to do something for this rebirth, I also thought of the other person at the first time. Today we should be able to put new books into storage, keep up with reading, as well as collect recommendations and offer monthly rewards. Let's see if we can attract a wave of traffic. Thank you. End of this chapter.